Here we are, Bonfire Banter, episode 2. We are so excited to get going here. I don't know if you guys are excited. I am, but I'm super excited to start filming today.
Me too.
So jacked.
We have
Super
a great
excited.
topic here. We got a couple new panelists. The big thing here that we saw is we got some great feedback after episode 1. Please keep subscribing, keep liking, comment if you want to see anything, if you want to be on, just hit us in the comments and let us know. We would love to hear any kind of ideas for new topics, or if anyone wants to jump in and become a panelist, we would love to have you. So we have a couple new guys here today, Jordan and Mike. Thanks for being here. Joe, from the last episode, we got him coming here again for round 2. Today we're doing an episode on COVID. Very important topic. Very in the news, I guess we could say.
I feel like people are getting burned out on it.
A little bit, but
Hey guys,
we're
happy to
in
be here.
phase 4 now. I think that is. So my first question I'd like to ask is, when this all first happened, try to put yourself back in March, okay?
That seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, because
March.
COVID months are like, times
Technically
3,
January.
basically.
Technically January.
Okay, let's just say, when we went on
It's,
lockdown, or maybe at the
actually
very
November.
beginning.
November.
We can go back to
November of
November.
last year.
Let's say when you first heard about it, how did you feel about it? Mike, let's start with you.
Fake.
Think-
From day one.
So, from day one, you didn't feel good about.
Anybody who knows me knows that this thing was fake from day one. I don't know, it just seems like every 2-4 years we have an illness that's going to shut the world down. And
Why every
This is
4 years, you think?
elections.
Based on political.
I mean, it's politics, it's economics. I mean, like, this is a perfect example of we have Trump winning the trade war against China, imposing tariffs. China finally cucks, and then all of a sudden they release a bad virus that shuts our economy down. And then they open up their markets the same exact time we close ours.
Okay, so let's stop there on that quick thing. I want to give the same question to Joe here. How did you feel when it first started happening? What were your feelings? What were your thoughts?
I mean, I guess in the beginning it felt, I got swept up in the hype, I got 3 younger kids, so, we all try to protect ourselves, protect everybody we love, and don't want to see anybody get sick. In the beginning, I think it's, more of a everybody come together situation. Let's all fight it together and make sure we do everything we can to stop the spread, flatten the curve was the big mantra, and, and then people get burned out,
Yeah.
So, but in the beginning, I was gung ho. I was like, hey, let's stop
Wearing
it.
a mask and stop going around.
Yeah,
everybody.
I mean, I was an essential worker, am an essential worker, worked through the whole thing. We have to follow policies to protect our employees too.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of liability that goes along with that, so you have to follow CDC guidelines, or you'll get in trouble with the labor board. So we have to do those things. So yeah, that's where I was.
Yeah, and if I could jump in just to, I just think it's interesting how the Ukraine investigation ends. Obviously, everybody finds out that that's not a story at all. There's no evidence for that at all. And it's just interesting that we knew coronavirus was a thing. It was in our papers. People were talking about it worldwide. And then the moment...
When are you saying? Or
Well,
just
I'm saying
timeline-wise.
there's writings from China from November, December.
Okay.
There's a lot of people in elite places that have predicted a pandemic for the last decade, half decade.
Yeah.
And since Ebola, and we kind of have known that we weren't prepared for this, but still so vastly unprepared.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that this thing we know about coronaviruses, we've had them, and it's the moment that impeachment was found out to be a hoax the whole time, and all of a sudden we are completely changing the topic 180 degrees, and now everybody on the entire planet is focusing on being afraid of a disease versus the attempted overthrow of a government.
Okay.
So.
And then, Jordan, I want to hear from you on this, too. So, first off, how did you feel? And I'm going to give you a 2-parter because we got 2 answers on this, too, so you could make that a little shorter, maybe. But, how did you feel when it first started versus how do you feel about it now?
Well, when it first started, I do work in a medical industry.
Okay.
And I work in one of the best respiratory hospitals in our area.
Okay.
And from the beginning, just being swept up kind of like Joe in the precautions and everything like that because I had to, because I worked in the hospital. So the mask every day, making sure your hands are clean because you're touching a lot of sterile things, stuff like that inside of a hospital. So I did kind of get swept up in the beginning, but as time went on, it's just our hospital just didn't see the cases.
Yeah.
They just didn't. Everybody kept coming out with the numbers and how many people were getting sick in Illinois, and like I said, we're the largest hospital in the whole entire Western area for respiratory care, especially. And we had doctors walking out because they didn't believe in it.
Really?
And they were going against the rhetoric. Yeah, well, doctors were walking out.
Doctors were
One of the
walking
best
out.
respiratory doctors in the state. Yeah, walk out.
Interesting.
Just didn't, because he just didn't believe in it, and they kept wanting him to fake it till you make it, and they didn't want to stick to it. So
Okay. Because that is an interesting thing to me, is that it does seem as if there are some kind of incentives in place.
there is incentives.
Yeah, there's
It's $1,300 if you get a positive COVID test for a patient. It's
Okay.
about $4,000.
'Cause
if
I've
you
heard
put 'em on a
different numbers
respirator.
on that.
39,000.
Is it 13,000? 39? Is it 13,000?
Yeah, it's 13,000 for with COVID,
For with-
39 on a respirator.
Oh, is that what it is?
And
That's-
so you're in a
yeah, so
position
it's
where you have an
unreal.
economy collapsing, you have a gigantic health industry that is saying, okay, either we classify the patients as COVID, and if they're on respirators, we definitely classify them as COVID.
Yeah,
So we either let doctors go, or we fund our hospital like we've never funded it.
yeah.
What do we choose? So you're making somebody, and Elon Musk said something to this tune of, you're making hospitals decide, do we let doctors go and dissolve, or do we actually become really healthy in a dying economy?
Right.
So you're giving them there's no, I mean, there's one answer that anybody that, especially when your position as an executive is based on how successful your business is.
Yeah.
And did most states, they made elective surgeries, like Illinois made elective surgeries
Yeah.
impossible to do, basically, right? They said you can't do elective stuff.
No elective.
That's how most
yeah.
hospitals survive, right? Is they do elective.
Yeah, we shut down our whole entire outpatient wing.
That's
our
what
whole
I'm saying. So
entire
outpatient
And
surgeries
that
are
turned
canceled.
into COVID floors? Or what
No,
did
not at all. We just shut it down.
They shut
Okay.
it down.
That
so
was
stop
no
the
usage
spread
of
it.
anything. No usage of all the machines that cost money to run up there. All the rented out suites that we had up there. All that income and all that revenue was just stopped, halted.
Gotcha. So that's interesting. It's like, so, what happens to the people that are doing those elective surgeries and those surgeons and stuff like that? I mean, they're just not working now? I
No,
mean,
so we put them in a labor pool. So labor pool, basically what they did is they spread out people who were DMG and RMG, which is just regional medical groups. They were just influx of people that were in suites in the hospital, and they just put them in a huge labor pool and just overstaffed the crap out of every area that was still open. Like, to the point where there was nurses sitting around doing nothing because there was so many staff members, because we thought we were going to have all this influx of patients, and there wasn't.
I feel bad for rural healthcare systems. They're probably taking the worst hit, because their funding was razor thin to begin with.
Yeah.
And their margins were so thin.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that we have an election cycle that, for a lot of people, is dependent on universal health care.
Yeah.
And then we have a lot of people without health care. And we're supposed to have flooded hospitals, never got flooded. So it's like,
And I don't know if that's fair to say. I mean, like, I feel like I've talked to people, in my line of work just every day that, have worked for hospitals that did see an influx. Maybe not for that entire period, but is it fair to say that every single hospital in the United States, like, nobody saw an influx in cases?
Well,
I don't know any,
But I think I think it's interesting because when you see how the CDC wants the cases classified, and the instructions are, if you don't have a positive test, but the symptoms are there of COVID, you think it's COVID, it's okay on the death certificate
To put
to say the cause of death is COVID. And that's CDC coaching doctors. So, and it's interesting too that we locked down, I don't know the exact dates, late March, like the last week of March, I believe, was our official started to wind down, shut down. And if you look at the cases, I know I've looked at New York study pretty thoroughly, but if you look at the hospitalizations due to the flu, and this is during one of the worst flu seasons we've had in a decade and a half. You look at the flu cases just go through the floor to zero by the end of March. And then COVID hospitalizations skyrocket. So
And what's the typical life of flu? Where is that typically peaking at? Where is that typically?
I mean, a lot of it's with the weather, just like.
No, I'm saying, is that the normal? Is that the same kind of timeline that we saw with COVID? Excuse me. Like it should usually, flu season typically peaks in March.
It's that there's a very gradual level off.
Okay.
So, and especially moving into summer, this went from among the highest we've ever had in New York specifically, which was obviously, again, the hotbed of COVID, which is, again,
Supposedly.
interesting coincidence.
Elmhurst Hospital, I think, was the
Yeah.
epicenter of the epicenter.
Yeah, so you have, and that's the funny thing about the epicenter is that they asked for 40,000 beds and they needed them and they needed all the respirators, and they didn't need any of them. They never hit more than 4,500 people in ICU. But it's just interesting that you have this, because it's not like it's in early April there was a decline of the flu and then it We're talking almost to the day. I think it's March 26th was the day we're announcing this. The classifications come out. Flu disappears. COVID is through the roof. And if you add up what we would have in a bad flu season with another flu-like illness, we're talking 80 to 120,000 deaths. So we have something with a 0.2% death rate, which the flu is 0.1 to 0.2. So I mean,
weren't they predicting over
2.2 million?
That's what they said originally.
That's what the CDC said. And they
CDC estimated 2.2 million.
What was the death rate or the percentage that they were estimating? Do you know?
I mean, when they were measuring it, they were saying it was 3 to 5%, which is catastrophic.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
So I mean, 0.2 is a flu, and it's the interesting thing is we've had flu seasons where there's been 80,000 dead, like in our very recent past.
Yeah.
I never missed a day, work anywhere, never changed my life at all. And it's just interesting that you have a extreme respiratory illness that almost mirrors the flu. Like the CDC, on the CDC website, the symptoms of both are identical. So you're just saying that something that without a test, you're saying it's that.
Yeah.
So there's a reason that you're fudging these numbers, has to be.
Yeah. And that's my question too here, is I thought was an interesting one, and I'm going to go to Joe on this one. What if COVID spikes again? Just your opinion. What do you think we do? I mean, do we go back into lockdown? Do we, just I don't know your opinion. I guess
I mean, at this point, I don't think the American people are going to. They're not going to want to lock down repeatedly over and over.
Yeah.
For 18 months on end. There's going to be in the media you hear about a second or third wave or whatever it may be until they find a treatment.
It's going to be with us forever and to be every year now.
Yeah, and I mean,
that's what I'm asking is maybe before the vaccine comes out, if we don't have a vaccine by October and this comes back around, yeah.
I don't know. I think we're definitely in uncharted territory as far as what we're being told from the CDC and the WHO and our government. And then, we've never had a situation like this, at least in 100 years where they think it's been this bad. So, nobody really knows what the precautions are going to be. And then state by state, every governor is different. Me and Mike were talking earlier about, what was it, the governor of North Dakota or what it was? She didn't shut anything down, and they gave her a parade.
Yeah.
So and then
very rural state, so I can see
right, rural. Yeah, exactly. So I don't like a general mandate saying that every state or it should be up to the state what they want to do. And unfortunately, I don't believe in a lot of what Pritzker does and the things he says. And then Lightfoot, I don't. I have my questions. Yeah, I got my own opinions there, but I think that people are very antsy when they have to be locked inside, and they get stuck, not living their normal lives, and they're not going to follow these guidelines forever.
Yeah,
that's why I was gung ho in the beginning, but everyone gets sick of it.
Oh, here we go. This is why it's live show here, guys. We're filming. We're on side.
Basically, that's basically an
Hey,
umbrella.
Joe,
What happens when
it's interesting you bring up how people act if they're locked up. It's like if you lock people up long enough, you'd think they'd want to riot or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that
It's
would be
almost enough to make you
Kind of be my
want to riot
expectation.
on the
Would be,
streets.
seems like there'd be some cabin
Ravage your
fever
own
going on.
towns.
So.
So, and that actually brings me to a question. I'm going to throw this one Jordan's way. Is there not some kind of hypocrisy in saying that we need to stay inside, but then not even on the heels of it, in this whole wave of COVID and the precautions we're supposed to be taking, we have these protests. I mean, is that not a hypocritical thing to say or push out there in the media? I do think that it's kind of an odd situation we have ourselves in as far as that goes. And I don't know, what do you think?
Oh yeah, no, it's okay to riot in the streets and protest, from my own opinion, but to have 10 people over at your house you guys will get arrested, apparently. And so to me that's a little weird.
Yeah,
that they're gonna say something like that.
Well, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you just ran me at I think it was a New York Times headline, and it said that I believe it was the CDC said that they were okay with the George Floyd protests.
yeah.
But said this should not be confused with the stay-at-home order protests.
Yeah.
Like, those aren't okay.
Those aren't
Right.
Yeah.
So when you lose your job, your livelihood, and your ability to feed your family, protesting that is not cool.
Yeah, and then you go to
But
your
when
capital and you
yeah.
say like the rights you're taking from us, we want them back. peacefully without actually leaving the place cleaner than you left it,
Right.
that is dangerous.
Or you
Right.
take over your
And I want to go on record saying that's dangerous.
And let's not get this confused with, again, I like that you guys brought up that point with the, that different protests are being said that it's not okay. I firmly believe that this country was built on protesting and standing up for what you believe in. It's just, I think it's part of the reason why I think there is mistrust for mainstream media today is because of something like that. It sounds, how can you do one and also do the other?
Well, it just seems like what they were doing was setting us up for a second wave. They were allowing people to go out into the streets. They were allowing people to protest. They know a lot of those people were, I saw it myself. Not everyone out there was wearing a mask. And now all of a sudden they're coming out with another wave.
Not everyone. There was governors and mayors that weren't wearing masks at the times.
Yeah.
Eric Garcetti in L.A., the mayor of L.A., was out there protesting with people with no mask.
That's what
on.
I'm saying. Not everyone was wearing a mask.
And you're the one that just locked up how many millions of Californians
Exactly.
saying that they couldn't go out and work
And letting
do
out violent criminals because
And I don't
you
want
want them to get sick.
I don't want to skate over the fact here that locking people in their house for an extended period of time is doing the exact opposite to our immune systems that they want us to. I mean, it's not. Yeah, locking us down is keeping us away from one sickness, but it's also opening us up for a lot more.
Yeah, how about
detrimental
depression,
sicknesses.
That is
mental
true.
illness,
mental illnesses.
suicide?
I mean, just when we've come out of lockdown right now, we've had so many more mental illness cases inside the hospital.
Could you guys
From
have
what you've seen
Did
personally?
you guys have a mental health ward?
We have
at you?
3 mental
They have
health
3,
wars.
yeah.
Okay. And you're seeing it, you think, from what you see, it's an influx
Oh, yes.
since.
Yes.
Okay.
Since the end. During COVID, we barely had any.
And,
But then towards the end of it, when everybody started to get antsy and locked down, and
Yeah.
that's when it started to get bad.
and you brought up trust in the media. I think it's when people look back and they say, okay, I lived in a time where 49 to 80 million Americans got swine flu, and they didn't shut anything down.
That did
And,
seem.
and so the only thing that's different
Is the president.
when is the president of the United States. I mean, I think to say this isn't political, especially when you look at the electoral map of the United States, and then you look at the COVID shutdown agree disagree map.
I don't know that I agree technically with anything like that because you're going to look at the biggest populations in the country, the most densely populated people are in the biggest cities where they're saying there's the most spread. Those biggest states typically go blue. Would that not be?
Yeah, but I mean nationwide, I'm saying the governors that decided to shut down
Yeah.
were
So you see there's
against
a
the President of
correlation
the United States,
there.
and it's not really it's a correlation. It's you would think it's the electoral map.
Okay.
When you
It's
look
not-
at it-
it's probably not exact, but it's probably pretty
It's-
close.
yeah,
to
it
I
seems
know
like-
what Justin's
Well, I
Justin's
just-
saying is that if the most populous cities, those states tend to have
Yeah.
Democratic governors because city centers and large populations generally go blue,
Yes.
whereas rural America
Yeah,
goes
but then
red.
that- yeah, but
and
there's-
rural America is less likely to shut down because they're farther spread apart.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I mean,
Precisely.
Texas has 2 of the biggest cities in the country.
That's
That
true.
is one.
Houston is
It's like
the
if you-
fourth
What
that
about
is
New
one.
Orleans?
And that's
What
I'm not
about
goes against that
Florida?
case.
And that's I think it's a misconception.
Well,
to,
Florida's a swing state. That goes back and
Florida
forth.
is a swing state, but not.
because while big cities do typically go blue, I mean every red state has a big city. So it's just the
Yes,
idea that
I'm saying the
it's
biggest cities, the
so
ones that are
it-
hardest
yeah.
hit by COVID.
largest.
So it just becomes when it's so directly down party lines and it's so blatantly the defense of taking away American rights.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the idea that this is they were just this wrong. I mean, you're off by millions of deaths. Like you said, it was going to be so much worse than it was, and then you want me to believe you when you say that there's a second wave coming.
The second wave actually
stand by.
is supposedly already here, and I actually did see a map of it today on Fox News. And the places that were hit the hardest during the second wave were the southern states that weren't shut down.
And not to get conspiratorial, but to kind of do it by nature.
That's just that is
Not
your
to get
personality.
conspiratorial,
yeah, let's
but
go with it though.
here we
I'd like
go.
to hear it.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So the biggest story in the country was testing.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody was, we don't have testing.
Yeah.
Donald Trump can't test. I don't mean to bring Donald Trump up, but that was the headline.
Yeah.
It was Donald Trump can't get tests. We're not being tested. Like, this is his fault. He's got blood on his hands. We all heard all the headlines. I mean, pathetic, but it's funny how right when we get the capacity to be able to test, we now open the floodgates for mass protests. And then everyone wonders, okay, now the tests are going to be done, which is going to give us vastly more cases That's the whole idea. Is like all testing does is increase your cases.
Right.
So then, right when this all
You're
happens,
gonna
now
identify the people
we're
that
leading
have
right into the home stretch of the 2020 election, and now there's going to be millions of cases because we're going to include. I mean, we just don't know enough about the testing, how it's done. There's just so many variables to me, and I've have very little faith in the organizations that are in charge of it. It's just
Which would be what,
I mean,
CDC?
WHO, CDC, Gates Foundation.
We did halt the funding for the WHO.
Yeah, did
Yeah.
Donald Trump
But-
not halt the funding?
but he-
They're still, yeah.
It's still
Right.
funny.
Yeah,
But-
that's still.
And it's just one of those things where you're in a position to where these organizations are inept, but then all it takes is Donald Trump shutting down funding to the WHO. And then Donald Trump doesn't care about coronavirus. You guys see, right? He's cutting the funding to the people studying it. So he's a double-edged sword. He has to do things that he doesn't think are helpful because he'll get killed if he doesn't. So I mean, it's this fight of the mainstream media.
I think
has
that's
been
any
wrong-
president too. Is that you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Kind of one side of the aisle is going to hate everything you do, or at least in my lifetime it feels that way. And then if the other side of the aisle, it's the same thing. I mean, it's
and I just have an obsessive. I'm just obsessed with the media, like especially the left-wing media, just because it's every story that's been a headline in the past 4 years, 5 years, every single one of them has been wrong. Verifiably, every single major headline, they were wrong about Covington, about Brett Kavanaugh, they're wrong about Ukraine, they're wrong about Russia. Every single thing that they've filled everybody's head with has been verifiably nonsense. So it's just their track record's so bad. I mean, I believe their approval rating with Gallup is in the mid-single digits.
with who?
Gallup Gallup polls, like the least trusted thing they've ever polled is the media.
Yeah, but they did do Biden a favor and look the other way with his Kavanaugh.
Yeah, and it's like the Terry thing. It's like
Right.
I'm watching Democratic politicians in office say a year and a half ago he's a predator. He can't be on the
About
Supreme
Brett
Court.
Kavanaugh,
About
right.
Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
And then the same people in a year are saying we believe Joe Biden. It's like, wait,
Right.
so it doesn't make any sense because Brett Kavanaugh did not do anything. We just know it.
I
So
mean, we
it's
don't-
almost the same thing. But
that's-
Donald
that
Trump,
wouldn't be
but to my-
generally accepted that he didn't do
but
it.
the interesting thing is Donald Trump, when he was accused, said, "Yeah, they're bullshitting.
Yeah.
They're fucking liars." They asked him, "Joe Biden was accused. What do you think you should do?" "I think you should face it. They're probably lying." So it's the consistent people. The only consistent person on this is the person that says, "I get that he's probably
I
getting
think you
fucked
need
with."
to be consistent across, no matter who it is. It needs to be a consistent
Mm-hmm.
case, or what you're saying needs to be consistent across the board,
Yeah,
especially with stuff like that, because these court cases have yet to be seen. Like they've yet to see their day,
Yeah, and
in
which
the
is-
proper manner, and to give all their information and stuff like that.
When you get to that high level, it's trial by media.
And basically,
Yeah,
that's
it's
the
done.
problem.
It's done. Like in the case of George Floyd now, that's done.
Yeah, and what's interesting,
That guy's
yeah,
like, and they bumped up the charge
Which
from third
the
degree
video's pretty
from third
damning.
degree to second degree murder.
Yeah.
And then now that prosecutor is going to have to try to prove intent
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, that's gonna be
gonna
hard.
be tough.
See, that's what I don't think a lot of people do realize is that I
They
had
wanted it
a
bumped
buddy
up.
that's in law school, and he was saying that the reason that they probably should have kept it at 3 is because they might be able to actually
They actually would
convict him
Yeah.
on 3.
Well, and here's the interesting thing is everybody's protesting that the system doesn't work, but they charge the cop. So I just don't know what the answer is.
Well,
I remember people used to
the answer
protest
is to be
because cops weren't
systemic.
arrested.
I just hope that
Charging conviction.
the charge. Yes, they charged them, and yes,
What else
they
can you do?
they got all 4 of them or whatever. But I hope that it didn't take that video to make that happen. That's the only problem.
Yes.
Well,
Is
that's the
is
problem
that
always
you
is.
had a
But it probably
however
was.
you feel about Laquan McDonald, it took a long time for that video to get released because it was a cop. It was the police officer's
wasn't the
footage.
person on the street.
So they held it and then they had to release it.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad that video is there to show everybody immediately what had happened because obviously nobody deserves to die over a $20 counterfeit bill.
Oh yeah,
But I mean, it's so egregious that I'm
It's-
glad it was
yeah.
caught on tape.
Yeah.
I was glad it was on tape for everyone to see right away, so they can get so there could be a quick solution, but then the solution was good enough.
yeah.
And I don't want to get too bogged out on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
George
Well,
Floyd
can I
thing
take
here.
one
but-
last point real
Yeah,
quick?
go for it.
But it just goes again to the hypocrisy of the media. I watched a video 2 years ago of Tony Timpa call the police, say, "I'm a schizophrenic. I don't have any meds. I need you to come help me. I don't want to hurt myself. Don't hurt somebody else." He called the police for his own safety. And then body cam footage shows police officers laughing, kneeling on him for 9 minutes.
Even after
He
he
died
was
on
dead.
he died on video, and then they laughed about it. Like, does anybody wonder-
I'm not familiar with
they-
this.
It was
Yeah,
terrible.
Well,
I
Justin,
just watched it a few
Justin,
days ago.
Tony Timpa's white. That's why you don't know about it. So I'm saying when I hear the media, I just know that the lack of consistency and the fact that elections are based on using race,
Yeah.
because the Democratic Party got 91% of the black vote in 2016. Like, studies have shown that if they get 12% of the black vote, the Democrats can never win another election again.
Mhm.
So do I think there's incentive to, when Donald Trump has a 40% approval rating with the black community, to create a race war?
Yeah.
I think there's incentive.
You start to feel like
So
there's
it's
a
like-
reason why.
so and I'm not saying that what happened to George Floyd isn't dog shit. I don't want anybody to get killed
No,
in the
no,
street.
no,
I don't
absolutely
think,
not. I don't
the
think anyone's
state-
saying
yeah.
that here. And
Yeah.
I definitely want to put one thing out there, too. We're going to have to wrap up this segment here.
Okay.
We'd love to dive back in what we're saying here in a second. But I would like to also put a disclaimer out there. Bonfire Banter, we're just a platform here. So when we talk about these things here, Bonfire Banter is not necessarily the opinions or anything voiced here today. We just like to be the platform to give people their opportunity to voice their opinions. So thank you guys for watching. We're going to be coming back with segment 2 here soon. Thanks again.
David Dorn.
And we're back. Bonfire Banter segment 2 like we never left.
No,
I'm
never
telling
did.
you, it's
Never
like
did.
deja
Definitely
vu.
the first time we did this segment.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So we want to go straight to some viewer questions. First, starting it with Jay Minty Nasca. He says, who did it affect the most? And I'm guessing he's talking about COVID. Who did that affect the most? Mike, let's start with you. For the first time answering this question, what do you think?
I think nursing homes are the most affected.
That's a good answer, yeah.
There's pretty clear evidence that Andrew Cuomo, the dog shit governor of New York, who you guys may have heard of.
So zero opinion based. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
No bias.
He ordered nursing homes to take in COVID patients. He forced them to stay in nursing homes.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know the exact number as of now, but I know as of not very long ago, it was 30% of all deaths were in nursing homes.
Nursing homes, yeah.
And so I mean, it's a catastrophic error by a catastrophic leader who somehow is been given an 85% approval rating. So I
It's
think
kind of easy when your brother's on a mainstream
Oh,
media.
yeah, and it's like, and then when you're talking to your brother about picking your nose with cum
Right.
swabs and
Who's
stuff.
his brother? Who's his brother here?
Chris Cuomo.
Chris Cuomo.
Fredo Cuomo.
Who does he work
That's
for?
right.
What's his name?
It's Fredo Cuomo.
Is that his real name, Fredo?
Yeah, his dad was the
given
governor.
name?
His brother was the governor. He's the retarded little brother. It's like a Godfather thing.
It's like a godfather.
Trump called him Fredo. Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, Trump
Oh,
called
gotcha,
Fredo.
okay.
Got it.
It's a nickname. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
the nickname.
No, nursing homes. Yeah, that's definitely.
I think that's
bad.
an easy number.
We haven't
one.
seen we share a grandmother.
Yeah,
In
we're all brothers.
a home right now. I mean, I would call it nursing home, assisted living, maybe.
Yeah.
But you can't see her. I mean, she's on lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw pictures of people sitting outside windows of like their,
Yeah, 'cause a lot of
parents
them
or
don't have
grandparents'
balconies.
house, outside
Yeah.
of their windows, like talking to them through the windows and everything.
Yeah, it's funny because you're not allowed to have funerals.
Nope.
Yeah.
But then I'm watching all the same people that said they would lock me up if I had parties and if we were
Can't have
dangerous,
wakes
we're
for your
killing
loved
people,
ones.
We're going to kill millions of people if we hang out. Are the same ones that are praising somebody they never knew by the hundreds. So I mean, it's just there's the
Yeah.
hypocrisy on the left, especially in modern times. I'm not going to say that throughout time things aren't different, things don't switch, but it's so blatant, especially in the internet age, how dishonest and hypocritical.
I'm
everybody's
glad there
been.
is in there in that age
Yeah.
because it really shines the light on it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you weed through the crap.
as long as
You're
tech
always going
companies
to have
don't
to,
take it
but at
off.
least you have
Yeah.
many outlets to go by it. But anyway.
So I got a question number 2 here. We're going to jump to that. That's coming from Shawnee Pat,
Shawty Pat.
and he wants to know, how do you feel about the recent uptick in Florida cases? Jordan, do you know anything about the recent uptick in Florida cases? Do you know anything about this?
Like for the second wave that's coming.
I guess, yeah. I'm not super aware about this, but
I know that a lot of the southern states are getting hit by this so-called second wave. I didn't know that Florida was one of them specifically being hit
okay.
to a certain extent, but I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that the uptick is probably because the average age of Florida is like 55, and it's where a lot of people retire to.
That might be higher than that.
It might be.
Yeah,
It might be
Yeah, I mean,
higher.
it's probably the nursing home capital.
It's,
Oh,
yeah,
it's gotta
probably,
be,
it's
yeah.
got to be the nursing home
Florida,
capital.
yeah, Florida is the asshole of the universe. So
Yes,
it's like,
it
it all goes together.
Sorry to all our Florida fans. Bonfire Banter again does not
Oh no, they agree.
believe that Florida.
They agree.
Yeah, so
If they could get out, they would
Yeah.
get out.
we don't believe that. So thank you, everyone from Florida, for watching.
Yeah.
But let's
The,
go.
the state animal of Florida is a mullet.
No doubt.
No doubt.
No. Have you seen Florida Man though?
No, I have no idea what you're talking
Dude,
about.
Florida Man is a guy that goes out in major storms, mullet, flag, no shirt on, and just
He's just about
and
it.
the wind just blows through him. That's epic.
So,
Does
Mike,
he-
what do you know about these uptick in cases?
Does Florida man eat bath salts and eat people's faces off?
I would assume so.
Okay.
Just
What
based
do you-
off of
what do you
his
know about this
mullet.
uptick in cases in Florida, Mike?
Well, I think it's just a matter of testing. We kind of talked about it earlier. It's you have people on spring break. You have people that have their rights taken away, and then they say, "Fuck it, I want to hang out," and they get together. And a virus that obviously exists, it's just you start testing more people, you're going to get more positive tests. So
Yeah.
I think the idea that this is the second wave, I don't remember the first wave ever stopping. I mean, it's
Oh,
kind
it
of a
stopped
thing-
when the rioting was happening.
th-
That's
th-
when it
th-
stopped.
So I
Yeah.
saw we flattened the curve. It's not like the second wave isn't, it's level and then it just keeps going up. So I think the whole phraseology of second wave is, it's,
So you're
Right.
basing it off of it. The second wave is just us getting more tests. We're just
It
testing.
was
Yeah,
more
yeah.
like an uphill, and then a plateau, and then another uphill.
yeah. And
Is
Which-
that fair? Is
Which
that
you wouldn't.
fair?
I don't think you would. I don't think you
I
would.
don't, it's hard
consider
without
that a
looking at the
wave.
numbers in front of you, but it seems to me like I don't know. There could be multiple waves. People, like I said, when people get antsy and they want to go outside again, and then states start loosening the restrictions, and they go into whatever Governor Pritzker has 98 phases
parts,
that you have to
yeah.
go through.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to
We're
wear
in phase
16 HEPA filter based masks.
Yeah.
I don't know what the
you,
heck he's
you can play singles tennis, but no doubles.
Yeah, no doubt.
That just makes sense now.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
if you're shooting it down the line,
But
I
you know,
mean,
so I don't know. Without looking at the numbers, it's hard to tell what the actual graph looks like on cases. But Mike's right. I mean, you test more people, you're going to get more positive tests. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and when that lull comes from taking away people's right to leave their house without the fear of prosecution, you're kind of setting yourself that you're going to have a plateau because nobody's going to the doctor because they're terrified because you're
yeah,
telling
that
them
is
they're
an
Oh, yeah, no
interesting
doubt, yeah.
dynamic there because I feel like a lot of people, even myself included, we were talking about it. Like, if I start to feel like, sick, do I go to the doctor right now? Do I want to be
No.
designated as a person that did have, COVID, or I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
We were
scary.
joking.
It
We
is
were
scary.
joking maybe a month ago, me and the wife, about the kids playing on the playset, and my 2-year-old climbs up the playset. I'm like, please, Lord, do not let her fall off the playset right now because
don't
I
wanna
do
be
not
anywhere
need an
near it.
emergency room trip. Like,
Yeah.
literally doing everything you can to prevent
To
going to
stay
a
out of the
hospital.
hospital.
Yeah, oh, yeah, no
Which
doubt.
is a scary scenario because then again, you have people that would typically be going to the hospital, but
Chest
now
pains,
they're
all
not.
sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had people with severe injuries,
Yeah.
like broken limbs, broken
And
Dog
they're trying to,
bites.
they're trying to
and they were
name a
going
few.
Tough it out.
into convenient cares instead of our emergency room because they were so terrified to come to our hospital. They were
Yeah.
going to our convenient care units, which don't have emergency room
Get
trauma
this.
training.
I knew a guy that got bitten by a dog the other day, and he didn't even go, dude.
Really.
That was
Yeah.
our sound guy's father.
producers,
Bitten by a dog.
Yeah, and he wanted no part of the hospital.
And it was a rabid dog. No, I'm kidding. It was his dog.
It was,
yeah, rabies isn't real.
Yeah.
all right, let's
Rabies,
get
fake
to
news, rabies,
let's
fake
get,
news.
let's get to
Fake
question number
Fake
3
news.
before we digress here. So question number
Dear
3
zombies.
is coming from Darlene. She happens to be a few of the people on this panel's mother, but she wants to know federal versus state responsibility. Let's let you handle this one, Joe. What do you think? Federal responsibility versus state responsibility with COVID and how we're handling it.
I mean, I'm a big states' rights guy, so I think most of it should be handled at the state level. The federal government, I mean, it's hard for me to say that FEMA and stuff like that is. I mean, I know it's effective in some cases, but you look at the disaster it was after Katrina and just how poorly mismanaged FEMA has been over the years, and they do such a terrible job, or at least it seems like they don't respond fast enough. They don't have enough resources. They don't have the right processes in place to handle these things that they claim to be handling, and they just do such a shit job that nobody really trusts them to do the job when it's time to do it, and that's federally managed. So it's like, I don't know. I'd rather just leave it to the states. I'm like I said, I'm all for states' rights, so I kind of want to see it by a state basis, and then, if the federal government has to step in, I think Trump getting that USS Comfort was excellent. I mean, they asked for it. They said he delivered it in 8 days.
Wasn't that the
Well,
ships
I
that
think-
he pulled
yeah, I
up?
think it was,
What
Yeah.
coast was that off of?
It was
he-
8 days.
Well, he said he would have it there in
Off
a
New
week,
York?
and it ended up getting there, I think, 48 hours later.
Yeah.
Like Rachel Maddow actually was on television laughing at him for saying it,
Oh
spent
yeah,
minutes
there's no way they
laughing
could
at
be
it.
there.
There's no
Oh
chance.
yeah,
And
no, it's crazy.
12 hours later, it was pulling
Did
out.
you see that
So
boat?
it's just
That boat was
That's interesting.
crazy.
It was a total of 8 days though, from when they said
yeah,
it.
before the gap.
But yeah, I mean, come on.
That's a
it's like,
pretty
she's
impressive
saying it. It's like, come on,
thing,
man.
though.
What do,
Yeah.
yeah. So
I think with
I
it-
agree with you though on the states' rights.
I think
mean,
with 360 million people, you have to have some sort of federal like emergency management. You have to have that.
Yeah.
Because a state alone, like their city centers, like we said, they're so big they couldn't, like, if they got hit really, really hard, like this is just
Talking
one
5%
pandemic.
if they thought 5% was
If
actually a thing.
5% or 10% was
Yeah.
a number that was valid in
Yeah.
a virus outbreak that we didn't have a cure for, and that really did hit, they're going to need help federally.
And
Like,
again,
there's
is that
no
the
way they
reason
can do it.
why we all start running into our houses and listening to people right away? Is because we're fearing that, right? We're
What else
fearing that
would it be?
we don't know, right? I mean, so
well, we just trust what the media says because we assume they're not political hacks.
yeah, that's
So
true.
when you start having a Democratic Party or any political party running 90% of the media in Hollywood, and they start telling you parroting the same shit, and it's hard not to believe it.
Well,
So
then I
it's
gotta.
one of those things where if you're not reading the data, you're not reading the studies, you're not trying to inform yourself as best you can and having your own interpretation. You're listening to Don Lemon,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're just trusting
And
Don Lemon because Don Lemon wouldn't be on CNN in prime time if he was reading a script of dog shit. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
Well, for decades, the people that we trusted most to give us our information, you know, Walter Cronkite or these guys that read the news, they were trusted because was your only source. There was only like 3 stations
well, and they
or
believed
limited news outlets.
and they believed the goal of journalism was to
Give you the
report
news.
the facts,
check on people in power,
Yeah.
not
That's it.
to
Help.
bow to them, and
not
make
to be
sure
a partisan,
It's like
right?
it seems like George Soros is talking to Don Lemon in his earpiece.
Right,
I mean,
but
it
then,
just seems so.
but
so
then
deliberate.
listen, but then, you know, on the flip side of that, you know, when Obama was president, we were hearing the same thing about Fox News, that they would claim to be fair and balanced, and then Rupert Murdoch owned all the news, and that you know Fox News was politically slanted to the right, and everybody knew it. And when George Bush was president, it was the same. I
Yeah,
mean,
and-
so it
And I
flips
don't
back
think
and
it's
forth.
I don't
flips
think
back
it's
and forth.
any kind of surprise to anyone that watches both Fox News or CNN back to back like I do. I like to watch them, you know, write and switch back and forth. It's very clear that they both have slants. So that kind of leads into my next question. And Jordan, I'll throw this one to you first because I know Mike's going to be very adamant about it. But where do you get your information from then? If we're not relying on CNN or Fox News or we're not trusting these people, what do you do? How do you know?
Well, I just wanted to start off by saying that independent media sources are probably one of my favorite places to go, which are guys that kind of like go on the grounds, do the boot patrol themselves, show up to places, record live videos, shoot live streams from those areas, and report. But the independent media sources, the reason I like them so much is because
Well, give us an example.
they are.
So plug somebody
Tim
for us
Pool.
here. Tim Pool?
Yeah, I do like
Tim
Tim Pool,
Pool's
and
really
I don't
good.
even agree with Tim Pool most of the time.
That's good. Okay. That's,
Like
that's
I'm,
fine.
you know, like
Because
I'm,
he doesn't go
You know,
out.
I'd love to see him without the hat, but
Yeah.
without the hat.
I don't think he has hair.
That might be the
Bald.
purpose of the
sorry, Tim. Sorry.
But the reason I like
Yeah, Tim
the
Pool's
independent
watching
media sources so much is because they know their bias. They
Okay.
come out and they blatantly say it. Nobody on CNN is going to come out and say that they're biased.
Well, and that's the
Yeah,
problem.
they're just playing that role.
They're just
Yeah.
playing the role of
Yeah.
bias, even though they're never gonna admit to it. They're never gonna say it. They're just gonna play off of it.
But the problem is even if they won't say it, it's that, and you literally took the words out of my mouth. That's why I'm getting into it now. It's like Tucker Carlson,
We didn't even have to
Sean-
introduce
Sean
Mike in this
Hannity,
question. That's
Laura Ingraham, the people everybody call like white supremacists or they're alt-right. They've never once told you that they weren't conservative and support the president.
Yeah,
They are doing opinion shows.
they say it. They say it
Don
every show.
Lemon, Brian Stelter, Chris Cuomo, they're telling you, they're giving you the straight dope. So they're the ones that are Don Lemon says, I'm not a Democrat. Stop calling me a Democrat. I don't let my politics get
Okay,
involved.
I don't watch enough Don Lemon, I guess, to know
so
that he says
they all
that,
say,
but-
we're giving you the facts. We're not partisan. And it's just, anybody that's listening to this, I challenge you to find a Tucker Carlson lie in the history of his show. So from Trump's election to right now, find me one and send it. And I wish you the best of luck.
Hey, we actually throw that up
So-
as a challenge.
Yeah,
Mike would
I'd
like
love to see
know
somebody
that,
to say,
so-
not something you disagree with. Find me something he blatantly misrepresented in order to make Donald Trump look
And we
good.
obviously need some sort
I'll
of
give you as
fact
much
to
time
back.
as you need. I'll give you as much
Yeah,
time as you need.
well, it
Yeah.
could be anything.
Hey,
But
just
we
say anything.
love the fan
Yeah.
interaction. So please, if you feel like anything on any episode you ever see on Bonfire Banter that you don't agree, we would love to get you commenting on that. And again, at some point, we could revisit this down the line and we could have somebody else with alternate opinions, and we'd love that. So please don't ever think that we're only parading people up here that are on one side of things. At the end of the day, these are the people that we're willing to sit down today. We're starting out. We don't have a pick of the litter of anybody. So we really
you did, you wouldn't
appreciate
pick us.
Well, I mean, you guys
forced
aren't
to get
fucking
us.
top of the line guys
Thanks
here.
for settling, bud. Appreciate you.
But we really appreciate your time here, obviously.
Well, we came for we were promised burgers.
Oh yeah, I fed them.
Yeah.
I fed them. So that
I
was,
came for the food.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Straight from work.
I appreciate you being here either way. But Mike, I feel like you're pretty you're pretty hyped up about the media. Again, where would you get your media from? Where do you get your information from?
Reliable sources with Brian Stelter. Saturdays on CNN.
Saturdays on CNN. Brian
Stelter.
Stelter.
Don't,
No.
don't watch Brian Stelter.
Don't watch
Watch
that.
him 'cause he's
Don't
hilarious.
watch that guy, please.
I don't know. I just
Is there anybody? Oh, that's a good question. A follow up to that. Where do you get your news from, or who do you trust to tell you the facts? And then second, where do you? Is there anybody on one of those stations that you don't care for that you think does a decent job? Anybody on
Somebody goes
CNN or
against your
MSNBC
views
or
that
anybody?
you still think
well, I mean,
is
it's-
good.
to me, I know that Rachel Maddow, I know that she is not trying to pull the wool over my eyes and pretend she's not left.
Who she is. Yeah.
Like, I know where she stands. So, while I think she's a liar, and I think she's ignorant, and I think she's a Rhodes Scholar that is so not on par with reality with what's going on. So it's concerning to me that she's so off, but I understand that she's at least biased, so I take it with a grain of salt. So I
You know
You
what
can
you're
respect
getting.
that a little bit.
Yeah,
You know
so
what
I
you're
just
getting.
Kind of give it
I
to
just
you
know,
up
so
front.
it's all the people that say Sean Hannity. I can understand why people do not stand Sean Hannity. I mean, he's
Guy looks like a Heisman Trophy
Yeah,
winner
he
though,
just-
from 1980.
Yeah, he just-
80? I would say 60.
But,
No, whatever.
but the problem is I wonder if people that talk about him negatively are saying it because he's wrong and he's a liar, or because he is absolutely smothering everybody in ratings.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where
I would like to hear Joe's opinion on Hannity because he's a huge fan of
Oh, but-
Hannity.
but- you asked-
Yeah,
you
at
asked
the end
of the
about
day.
a source of information I trust. I trust nobody but myself. So
Do your own research.
Literally, I spend more time than I am comfortable talking about reading and watching news. It's
I
like,
think comfortable than all of us are
yeah.
talking
I mean,
about.
it's a problem, but
Do your own
I just
research.
know I look at what everybody's saying. I look at all the sources they're citing, and I just read them.
Yeah.
And then I realize that I don't need a PhD in sociology to read a sociology study. I don't need
Yeah.
a
No,
PhD
you
in
don't.
economics to understand an
But
economics
do
study.
you not feel that's
So-
a full-time job for anybody else out there that's like not super into politics? Like, is there like someone you could get some quick facts from in this day and age of like, I want the information right now? Like, instead of
Oh,
diving
how about
in, like, is there
what's
somewhere?
with Reuters?
Infowars.com.
No, stop it.
InfoWest plug.
What about
Yeah,
Reuters?
you can plug whoever you want
Like,
here.
like when I
Infowars.com.
ask
I think Reuters is biased too.
when I say I know, but when
They're
I
all
say
biased. You're never going to find somebody
I know,
who's not
but
biased.
it's about.
But when I say
being
Alexa-
honest.
being
biased,
honest
maybe,
about your
yeah.
bias.
when I say Alexa, give me the news, and it says news brought to you by Reuters, it just reads the
Which
news.
is interesting because when Amazon and Jeff Bezos own the Washington Post,
Yeah.
and they're firing journalists for wanting to run a story on Amazon, it's where you see it. We have corporations running the news,
Running a story
and
or
those
publishing
corporations
a
have
book.
very clear, distinct
Biases.
political interests.
Right.
And all the news, the fact that 96% of all Donald Trump's coverage is negative, it's a joke.
a
You
little
should be thinking it's
alarming.
funny.
Didn't we used to have a rule of 7 in this country where one corporation couldn't own more than 7 media outlets?
But they don't own them. They just have their hands deep.
No, I know that, but now we've consolidated and monopolized media in the last 30 years so bad that you get these split biases. That's why it's the same reason a two-party system doesn't work. One's going to pander one direction from the middle, the other one's going to pander the other direction from the middle, so you're only going to get 2 choices.
Yeah.
So when you start monopolizing the news, well, then you're going to have some that go that way, some that go that way, and nobody left in the middle because they're just
That's why you don't watch
grouping
the
them all
news.
together.
Well, it's because their corporate media is forced to swallow popular internet media by just necessity. So, I mean, Alex Jones I think is one of the most talented people in the history of media. I think it's not even close. I think he's an absolute genius comedically. I think he's just a special order. But aside from all that, you look at Alex Jones is off of all social media platforms, and it was all because Sandy Hook. He wanted people to harass Sandy Hook families.
He wanted people to do what?
He wanted people to go. They say he wanted people to go to Sandy Hook families' houses
And harass them.
and harass them
harass
for it being a false flag and whatever.
Okay.
The problem is that he never said it. He offered $1 million if somebody can show him footage of saying it.
Did
Never
he
did it.
just maybe did people take it as saying he assumed that, or he was You know, he said it without saying it. I don't know anything about it.
That's the problem, though.
Yeah.
Is we can't be in the business of saying.
Yeah,
anything.
no, yeah, absolutely.
What he's saying was there a case to be made that he was inferring
Yeah.
Oh, no, well,
in any
it doesn't
way,
matter.
shape, or
It doesn't
form?
matter. It's for the all big social media platforms to blanket dismiss him from the platform. It seems on the surface it makes sense, but when there's no video, and then
Precisely saying that.
but then you look at the same time, Alex Jones had 1.5 billion views on YouTube. Fox, MSNBC, CNN, total had less. So they're moving into a TV's dead. Obviously, I think we all agree that nobody's going to wait till 8 o'clock and watch commercials. So
Yeah.
TV's dying, and they know that they're transferring into that space. And the king of internet media, and Joe Rogan's really popular.
Super.
Alex Jones squashed him like a bug before he was taken off all these platforms. So you're saying, okay, who's my competition? Is it because he's a monster that wants Sandhook families to be harassed, or is he the guy that's squashing all of us? And he just they destroyed their competition and then pass it off like they were virtuous in doing it. So, but that's the media I look at. I look at a media that they're political organizations, and you can't trust anything they're saying.
Okay.
So I don't know. You take what everybody says. You look at their track record. You look at what they cited, and you just read it.
But the problem with that is, real quick, and I know he's going to move to another question, but the problem with that is people with families, like I have 3 children, young kids, 6 and under, you just don't have the time anymore. When in 2008, Ron Paul's running for president, I was so into that campaign, and me and my mom and him and everybody marched in the Elmer's Parade with the Ron Paul signs. We were on the news, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. I had kids. I don't have time. Like, all my time is consumed by my family. I am still interested in politics, obviously. I'm still interested in the media and this and that. Yeah. I try to listen to as much as I can while I'm working or while I'm, at home, but it's hard. It's hard to find the time to dig like you're digging.
I was saying, it's hard. It's a full-time job.
It is.
Up with these
well,
things.
he said he feels uncomfortable the amount of time he does it.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, so.
I mean,
I just want to pull the news from a reliable source in 10 minutes.
I understand what you're saying. It's just we're in a position where we're trying to figure out what are the long-term effects of too much information.
Yeah.
I forget who I heard that quote years back, but I remember hearing it. It stuck with me because it's right now you cannot get all the information you want. You can't read it all. You can't trust anything anybody's saying. Yeah. So in a position like you're saying, if you have a family without the time, the problem is I don't know what you do.
Yeah. It's a difficult
scares the
thing
shit out of me.
because I keep asking people that question. And I feel like I haven't gotten a straight answer because it is, you have to just sit there and do your research. I feel like that's the only way to decipher
just don't
what's
trust
happening.
just don't trust anybody but yourself. If you have time to read something and you feel a certain way about it, I wouldn't just say, yeah, but they're saying it over in CNN, so I got to lean that way. Yeah. Like you just can't trust anybody has your best interest in mind.
Right.
Jordan, go for it.
When you're reading sources, go to the sources to read them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Don't look at headline media.
Yeah, because
all that stuff that people post on Facebook, all those articles that have the headliner and everyone always reacts off the headliner and thinks that the whole article is going to be about the headliner. There's deeper meaning inside a lot of those articles that the headliner is not showing you. The headliner is going to show you the bad or the good of the article, but there's a lot more information inside the article. The new one that just came out today was something about how Trump is opening up Alaska for killing or hunting animals like bears and wolves, and everyone hated it. They thought he was a monster.
When you read the headline.
But it's a necessity to do because if you go and look at the data in the article, it's showing you that Alaska is overrun by bears and wolves right now, and they're eating. Right. They're eating everything in sight.
DNRs in certain states, they
have to open up the season.
Right. They open up the season to keep the numbers low.
Plus, if you want to really look into it, the last point of that article that I read today is there are like over 100 tribes in Alaska. There's a lot of tribes. And we took that hunting right away from them. A lot of those tribes live on those hunting rights.
Who took that away from them?
I mean, it was taken away years and years and years ago. I can't even tell you under what presidency it was taken away from.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a wildlife protection agency, and they were like, "You got to stop killing the deers and bears." And well, those guys live on that stuff.
Yeah, they're not just doing it for.
They're not just doing it for game. They're doing it because
life.
it's their livelihood.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point with the headlines and how we're in a place now where, in order to compete, the respected media organizations have got to be clickbait.
Yeah, clickbait. It's all about clickbait.
So when your source of information, when you have a family and you don't have time and you need to know what's going on,
you read a headline.
Family yourself.
You read the headline. Yeah.
You're reading clickbait. They're given rights in the Constitution and protections from slander, and they are protected from being able to be sued for the things they say, and that protection is being abused by them just blatantly lying. So it's like we're just we're in the twilight zone.
Media integrity.
But they get away with it because they put a clickbait on there that makes you think one way or the other. But then they can post the rest of the article and
right,
not call it false
Well, that's
because
like-
it's just clickbait.
Well,
Oh, it's just the headliner. You have to read the rest of the article to get all the
It comes
information.
down to what Congress and what members of Congress are going to be the ones that say we need to restrict the rights of the press. So they're putting the leadership in an impossible position. So it's
Impossible.
be misinformed or have your government be fascist and be not letting people lie.
Yeah.
So it's all about interpretation. So
Real quick, we only have a couple minutes left on this segment. We're going to go to the last question from Jason Robles.
Robles.
Jason.
What's
Robles.
up, Jason?
That's actually, I
Sup,
should know how to
right?
pronounce his last name.
'Cause he's our
I love Jason. Yeah,
family
Jason's
member.
Fantastic human being.
What's up, Bob?
But he said,
Rubber side down, buddy.
Explain the N95 mask versus, he says, the shitty ones everyone is wearing. What's the difference here? Because like I got one that's like was made by a friend of the family. It's like a Cubs logo, and like I was told too, it's like that's not doing anything.
It's going to
but-
protect the spread from you to other people.
Okay.
Because it's stopping you from projecting onto
Yeah.
people.
Like if you
But
sneeze
if
or
someone
cough.
projects onto the top of your masks, or onto the top of your
not
mask,
helping
you're
you.
done.
That's
You're
why
straight.
they all had to be. Everyone have to be wearing it and wearing it correctly.
Yes.
But
Because I see people in the store wearing them below
Yeah,
their
it's
nose.
Yeah.
Cool. Can
When
you
you
sneeze on my
sneeze,
frosted
Did you guys-
flakes
did you
before I
guys
pick
see
that
the
up?
lady
It's
that walked in,
amazing.
you guys see the lady that walked in the gas station that had the mask with the
Hole cut in it?
out?
That's what we call
and
it.
he's like, and the guy goes, oh, where'd you buy the mask from? She's like, oh, I just got it from somewhere. I cut the hole in it because I couldn't breathe.
It's hard to breathe.
Yeah, that's what we
Like,
that's what we like to call a Karen mask.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because when you see the CDC, right when this all happened, they're very clear. Wear a mask if you have it.
Yeah.
No reason to wear a mask if you don't have it. And then right
Or
when it start-
or
right
if
when it
you have
started-
symptoms too.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they
Like
said
if you're
you
coughing
have
or
it,
you have
but
fever.
you have it,
but
wear it.
There's no reason to run out and
masks
go
are
start
for
buying masks.
You to have it, not give it to others.
Yes.
It does nothing for you to be wearing it. Because like Jordan said, all you can do is contaminate the mask and then you're sucking it.
Then you're sucking it in.
So the difference
Or
to
you're
me
touching
is
your face 89,000
Yeah.
times a day, adjusting the mask.
yeah, I
and
mean,
then the mask.
You have
yeah.
it all in your
I mean,
hands.
the difference to me between the masks is the nicer ones that everybody on the left wants you to wear really contain the illness better within you.
Within you. It does.
So
it's
it's
true. The
actually-
N95s,
I know,
the
it's just
big time masks, those ones project right back into yourself.
yeah.
And that's what they were saying about ventilators, right? That
Well,
was making
well,
it even worse.
That's the problem.
Well, the ventilators have filter systems on them too that cut out a lot of the stuff.
The
But
problem with the ventilators is that it was made a thing about we need more ventilators. New York said you need 40,000 ventilators or 30,000 ventilators. Trump said you don't need 30,000 ventilators. You don't need them. But the thing is that the thing I don't talk about is when you're on a ventilator, there's a 90% chance you're not going to get off the ventilator. So the thing that was the most important thing that dominated the news that the Trump administration was dropping the ball on is actually a moot point. If somebody's sick enough to be on a ventilator, yes, it's important for them to be
Ventilated.
but you're making it seem like ventilators are going to save us from the virus.
Right.
It's like you're talking about people with a
Especially
more or
because-
less a death sentence and saying you don't give us that, you're not helping the virus.
Right.
especially
So
because
what was the question about the mask? So what the quality
Basically,
of
what
the
is
mask?
the difference? Like, well,
Oh,
you know.
well, I'll tell you one difference personally from wearing both kinds is that the cloth ones, you know, even though my mother-in-law, she made a bunch of them,
Yeah.
they're nice because it's something, but they're hot to breathe in.
Yeah,
And I'll be in the store and like, you know, run around the store trying to pick out groceries and stuff, and like Jules requiring and stuff that you wear them. Aldi too.
Yeah.
So you go in there and it's like after running around there, getting in line, all this stuff, it's like, dude, I get out to my car and it's 80 degrees. I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm
take
like
this thing
ripping
off.
the mask off and sweating. Like I'm already a large
So
person.
we got to kind of
crazy.
get cutting down here on the second segment. We want to say thank you so much to everyone that gave the comments. Keep doing that. We're trying to use everybody's comments as much as we can do. We're coming on for a third segment. I think Joe's going to have to leave, so thank you so much for your time. We'll see you
No problem.
again. Segment number 3. Oh, Jesus. I'm getting
Forgot
psyched
about
out
that
here.
one.
Thank you so much. Then we'll see you in segment 3. And we're back with another segment
3.
of Bonfire Banter. We don't know what number it is at this point. Let's just roll it as we are. We have another question from the from our comments list here. It's coming from David Hudson, and he says, "How do you think everyone will feel about this a year from now? And how do sports adapt?" I think that's a very interesting question, actually. Jordan, let's start with you on that one. What do you think?
I think a year from now, this is going to be in the back of everybody's mind. Like every major event that happens
Yeah,
every
it's
4
gonna be
years,
blown over.
it's going to be blown over.
Forget about it. Be like, oh, that was funny.
Everyone's going to find out the real truth about this whole thing and the reasons and the agenda that was behind it, and it's going to blow through everyone's mind, and no one's ever going to think about it ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be similar to the news cycle of 9/11
Yeah.
in the way of where while it was happening, I thought I'll never turn a TV on ever again and not see
Something terrible.
about the towers or the
Yeah.
war we're in. It was
And
I
eventually
thought
it
it was
becomes
never gonna
back
end,
page
and then-
news.
before I knew it.
It was.
They haven't talked about the war in 10 years.
Yeah.
Like it went from building the mainstream news and the gigantic corporate media, the 24/7 news outlets.
Coverage.
It built all of them, and then for some reason haven't talked about the war in 10 years.
Yeah.
So interesting things to think about. Just
Because we got all the oil we could and we
I
got
think,
out.
I think no matter how big a story is,
We built the mass graves and we
will
left.
go away.
Yeah,
we're-
I think
we're
that's
weird creatures.
absolutely. I even feel like, during the riots and stuff, that COVID even was like, oh, is that still happening? Are we still
A lot
doing
of people
COVID
said
thing?
that.
Are
A
we
lot
still
of people
doing
said that
this?
to me.
I mean, 48 hours after the riot started, I felt like it was over. Like
Yeah.
CNN took their coronavirus counter off the
Off.
screen.
Yeah.
It disappeared.
You
And then-
stopped seeing
it's
that
back
really
now.
big, scary cell thing.
It was back to-
yeah. And then the riots, and then it started dying down, and then
Yeah, we're
counters back up, and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Is anyone ever
mask,
going to
mask,
talk
mask,
about
yeah.
how 5G towers look like trees, or is that all out the window?
Let's
again?
not go dive down into the 5G thing. What I do want to talk, though, is that the second
what's
part of
the
that
hold
question. Second part of that question was actually, how do sports adapt to these things? And I think that's an
5G.
interesting one, because you're seeing the NFL is probably going to start on time. They're probably going to start on time. And you see then the NHL or the NBA has made a date when they're going to go back. And then you see the MLB, who is just like in a whole mess of problems. But Mike, what do you think, like, just, you could go on any sport here or all of them or whatever you want to go with here. But how do you think the sports are going to adapt to this?
Just to the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And like putting people in stands and things like that.
I mean, I think it's pretty similar to the news cycle.
Do you think the NFL stadiums will have full capacity come
I
day
mean,
one?
I don't think they're going to start with full capacity.
Okay.
I think certainly it's going to be affected early on.
I think it's going to be
Like
ticket
early in the
holders.
season.
And this
like
is all speculation, by the way. But like, what do you guys think? Like Jordan, for example, like, what do you think they're going to do at a stadium to like
Ticket
keep
holders.
it? What do you say?
Ticket holders only.
Ticket holders?
Ticket holders only.
Oh, ticket holders, like season tickets.
season ticket holders.
Okay.
Only.
And then do you think they're going to space them out
Yes.
because a lot of those season tickets are
Yeah.
close?
Yeah, I think they
Well,
are,
I-
and there's going to be a very big discount on the season
think
tickets
the-
this year from a lot of seasons. I think.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. Yeah, you
I
would
think
think
that's a fair
so, right? I
assessment,
mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be the same atmosphere.
If I'm a season ticket holder on the 50-yard line and I'm not allowed to sit on the 50-yard line, I shouldn't be paying for my
That's
season tickets.
true.
on the 50-yard
Yeah,
line. I
that's
mean, come on.
absolutely
That's-
true. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I
That's
agree
going to
with that.
affect a lot of that. The other thing I think is very interesting is if schools don't start on time, are you going to play NCAA sports? Because now we're talking about like these guys, that's what they're given. They're not paid any money. They're given their education. So if you're not going to school, why are they playing games?
I think. I mean, I think they're going to have school one or the other. I mean, be it online.
Yeah.
It's been proven that you can teach
can do
any
everything.
level of any
Yeah.
education on the internet.
on the internet.
So I think
Okay.
it's more going to be with the sports. Like they'll be. I think there's a responsibility with the university to protect the students and protect the athletes.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think.
Do you think if students aren't there, that it's their responsibility to not the sports go? Because obviously, as a football team, you need to have more than 10 guys there. You're going to have 90 to 100 people with staff and everything else. So if they're saying, "Oh, classes can't go back," how big is any classroom? But the football team practicing, that's different.
Yeah,
And they're not paid.
No, I think academic institutions are going to be hypocritical in a lot of ways on this.
Yeah. Well, because again, they get money from.
Well,
these,
they know that they can offer the education without the kids coming to class, and they
Yeah.
know that they can make money off the kids playing football.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boosters.
So I just know that.
So it's going to be interesting to see what they do, though, because it's going to be hypocritical. If they're saying that you can't go to an auditorium and sit with 50 of your classmates, but you can, as a football player, go and have a practice with 100 guys, that's okay.
I mean, it's
But because they're making money off of that, they're going to make money off the education either way.
yeah. I mean, it's like they've, in order to make the billions of dollars in revenue the Alabama football program's brought in, they've put 100 chairs a year in different classrooms on the university and let them sleep in a bed.
And Siskin?
It's the idea that these colleges, or Alabama specifically, has
Yeah.
made billions of dollars
Yeah.
on football in how many years? And just college football industry is just
Yeah.
multi-billion industry.
Yeah.
And all they've done is take chairs and add them to the classroom, 100 chairs a year, and then they give the kids a bed, and they felt that was adequate
Yeah.
to give them I don't know, it's not a very great education right now in academia.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things where they are born in hypocrisy based on the fact that they've created the university and built it up to
Yeah.
the heavens based on these kids' free labor.
Yeah.
And so it's like the idea
And
that
most of these kids don't actually ride out the full 4 years, or at least the best kids
yeah,
do.
and they're
don't,
gonna
but-
they're gonna do what the pro sports do, and they're going to do whatever their political affiliation, whatever way they lean. They're a populist organization.
Yeah.
They'll do whatever the left agenda is, and they've always done that my whole life.
And Jordan, what do you think? I mean, do you have any opinion on what sports are going to do? What do you think sports are going to be able to do when they come back? How are they going to adapt?
Well, when it comes to them coming back, I just think it was timing for a lot of them. Like you said, the MLB kind of took a big hit, but it was just the timing of their season.
Yeah. And they're running into other things too, like labor disputes and stuff like that. So I don't think it's just COVID, but
it's a big part of it is COVID.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't have a game.
Yeah, I think it's funny that LeBron James had said a little while back, like when this was all first happening, like, I won't play a game if there's no fans in the stands.
Yeah.
And now it's like this is going on, and I don't think there's going to be fans in the stands, but I think that guy's going to be getting back on the court because he wants to win a championship more than he cares about the fans in the stands. So.
I don't understand at what point in your, but I've never made it to the big leagues, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't understand at what point in your career, coming up through the love of the game in grade school, middle school, even high school, into college, at what point do you turn into that person? Into that monster that like doesn't care about the love or the playing of the game anymore. They care about like the fans that are there.
Are these kids growing up because some of them are like 18 years old, like LeBron James again, and that's even 20 years ago that he was coming up. But some of these kids aren't even caring about the college part of it because they're so quick to like
get out of it.
The college doesn't matter.
No, the college doesn't matter. College doesn't matter. I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah,
I've been to D1 programs and seen the people who have scholarships who sit on the sideline and don't do anything and are treated like gods. Yeah, that's how it is. They get them personal tutors. They get them through whatever they need to get through to put a good name on their school and get them into the big leagues as fast as possible.
And that's the thing is like that's an injustice to these kids because they're not getting the actual education.
Have you ever heard an interview with half these kids?
I will say in those cases, I mean it's hard for me to argue that the best thing a university can do for that kid is to get him to play pro ball.
That is.
I mean, it's like if you're one and done at Duke, I think the best thing Coach K can do for you in your future is to put you in the league after year one.
You think that is?
Like, I think Coach Cal has been the guy to do the most for college athletes.
Yeah,
that I've seen, especially in the mainstream.
But he's putting him in the pros.
But don't you think that
1 year's getting in the league? Those kids staying in college doesn't do them any good.
No,
it does because it gives them that education.
Yeah, but
then don't you think that if you want that Duke education at the end of the day?
I want to go to the league faster.
Yeah, but they might blow their knee out and never have an actual.
Yeah, but they can always go back to Duke forever. That's the whole thing. Coach K, you have a lifetime scholarship.
Is that every institution?
Well, I don't know if it's every institution, but it's the idea that the odds if you get a diploma from most of these D1 schools in an average liberal arts degree, the idea that you'd make more than you'd make in the 2 years you play in the league over your careers, the chances are super low.
Yeah,
so
and that makes
if you want to say come back if you want to, but you go get the money.
Go get the money. I agree to go get the money.
We're here to educate you in order to get you paid.
Maybe what 5 or 1% of all the kids that play college sports go athletic, go professional, and they're able to make
I'm just talking about when we're talking about the one and dones and stuff, guys going.
Those guys.
That's you have to get those guys to the league early. That's kind of the whole point.
If they're ready,
they should be able to play before. They shouldn't have to go.
If the coaches feel they're ready, I think that's
if you're 16 years old and you can play in the league, you should be able to play in the league. The idea that if you're in this industry, you have to go to college for a year before you can do it.
Yeah, that does seem a little weird.
If I can play like a man, I'm a man. What do you mean?
Yeah. But in the NFL, I don't think anyone would say that an NFL team is.
But at the same time,
16 years old, you're
there's
ready
a dude
to play.
That thinks he can roll. And
that's true. That's true.
If an organization wants to pay a kid that can play ball, the idea that you say, no, we need to keep the farm system going, the freedom. We need to make college basketball good because it ruins college basketball. Why does the NBA? Why is it their responsibility to make sure college basketball is good? It's we built a system where academic institutions are farm systems for professional sports leagues. Yeah. So we're in a really silly spot. So I think I don't know. We're kind of getting off the.
And I actually want to take a sharp turn here into something else. But basically, and thank you, Dave, for the question. I think that was, I like inserting sports. Sometimes I think it lightens up the topic sometimes. And I love, seeing how this stuff affects every avenue because obviously COVID does have a huge effect on the sports world. And that is a big topic. But one of the things I'm finding most interesting right now with all the COVID stuff, going on with the riots and everything else, is what's happening in Seattle, with, and I don't even know the right term for it. What are they calling this thing? Chaz?
Chaz.
So is
Is it chopped now?
Just chop now.
Okay, is this in any way, shape, or form based on anything having to do with COVID? Is there, what are they doing about COVID in this little section of community they have? Is that even being talked about in there? Or?
I mean, it seems to me like we're kind of just watching the police force just say, okay, well, you guys get it out of your system.
Okay.
I mean, this seems like a live action role play thing to me.
Okay.
Like,
And you
it
think
just-
they're
it
letting
seems
it happen because they want to let it get them out of their system?
I don't know.
or-
I think the entire movement, a lot of the politics right now is emotional and
Yeah.
like there's a division amongst races, and I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening right now that
They're playing into it.
our politicians are incentivized to encourage.
So I guess I need to know a little bit more about this community or whatever they're doing in Seattle. Jordan, I mean, what do you know about what are they doing there, right?
So the best comparison that I heard recently about this Chaz or Chop, whatever they call themselves now, is it's kind of like the Vatican. It's its own country, is what they're trying to
Is that
portray
what
it
they're
as.
trying to do?
Inside, yeah, it's an
So what are the rules inside of this?
Autonomous
an
community?
autonomous zone, which is what the Vatican is in Italy.
Yes.
It's the same thing. It's
In a
not
country,
policed by the country. It's not under many laws
There's
that the
actually a
country's
sign when
in.
you enter saying you're now leaving the.
No, you're not
United
leaving the
States.
USA. Yeah,
Not leaving
Walking
the
into
USA.
USA.
there.
Like
When
go
you
in,
walk
say you're now leaving
into
USA.
the
Like,
Seattle,
they,
yeah.
they don't feel like you're in America there.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't want to be a part of.
So
the
now,
great
what
thing
are
we
the
have here.
great rules of this place that are better
rules?
than America?
Dude,
I
it's
don't
like-
know what.
No, there's-
Basically,
What
what
the whole idea
somebody
is, yeah.
compared this place to right now is basically like a Bonnaroo. There's no rules. There's people sleeping in tents. There's barely anything to eat. People are getting most of their stuff off of donations
Are people getting sick? Is anyone coming out of this zone saying, "Oh, we have COVID now because we're sleeping"?
as
in
of right
tents
now,
and-
nothing that I've heard.
Yeah, I don't think
We haven't
there's-
heard about any
I don't think
COVID
there's a great
cases in this-
testing structure.
Because it
put in place
sounds
in
like
Chaz.
this
think
is
they
a
have a
pretty
COVID
dirty.
tent in Chaz.
It sounds like it's a
The Chaz
pretty.
doesn't have great health care yet.
Because I've been to Bonnaroo twice, and
It's a dirty
not a
place.
very cleanly place.
No.
So I don't know much about this to say that you're right, saying that this place is dirty, and not saying it's dirty, but saying that they're living in tents and
They are.
it's kind of a
tent
toss-up
community.
community.
Well, I'm saying their
Okay.
economy is based on tourism, and it's been slow so far.
Yeah.
But
I mean, is that
when-
kind of what
well,
they're
when you-
banking off of? Is that
No,
people are going
I-
to come and visit?
It's
or-
on tourist sites now. Visiting Chaz is
Well,
on
I'm
a
saying
tourist site now.
the police have just abandoned an entire precinct.
and they're just
downtown
saying,
I
"Do
think
you
they got
guys have
forced
at
out.
it?" kind of thing.
Seattle. Yeah, I mean, it makes so little sense that it's hard to make sense of it.
They got forced out of the precinct, and it wasn't by the people forcing them out. It was by the higher ups forcing them to leave
Yeah,
the
they're
area.
just
Is
a-
that
seems
how
like
it
a-
happened? Because
seems like a-
how do the cops just relinquish
They got a call.
this area?
They got a call.
Yeah, it's.
They just say,
it's
you know what?
political- this
We're
is a
feeling good
political
about
thing.
these political guys.
Yeah.
We're gonna let this group take over these city blocks,
Yes.
Yeah, but
and they're just letting it happen.
I mean, it's funny because it's such a fascist, weird thing to do.
Yeah.
What people are
So
doing.
what point
and
does-
it's just weird that I don't know. It's just
At what point
it's
does the federal
so-
government come in and say,
That's
"We're
wrong.
not going to let you do that"?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the question. That's like
like, when is- when
are they gonna
pull the trigger?
Do you think Donald Trump at
Well-
some point is going to come in and stop this? How long has it been going on, by the way?
I think what's going to happen is Donald Trump's going to make a statement saying that he's going to stop it, and he's going to start to push in the actions to stop it, and then
He's gonna get a lot
that's
of
when
blowback.
the Seattle Democratic leaders are going to come in and be like, "Oh no, now we're stopping it. Now we're stopping it. We don't need you, Trump. We're going to stop it now."
Well, I
So
think
you
it's-
think
it's-
that he's going to take the lead, and then
He's
they're
going to take the lead, and then they're going to make it seem like
they.
they took the lead. Yes,
Okay.
that's what I think is
It'll
going to happen. Just like it happened everywhere else around the world.
It'll become a
Trump said he's going to
political
militarize
benefit at a
streets.
certain point.
Say it again.
It'll become a political benefit at a certain point.
It will.
Right now, the hot thing is that this whole
They're
defund
allowing
the
them to do
police
it.
or get rid of chokeholds and this whole systemic racist narrative that's been going on and policing and the popular thing right now is that, let these asshole college kids.
Is it
just
basically let them-
play house for a little bit and then when they start hurting people, we'll get in there.
Yeah.
But it's like it's just
So could we see any kind of future where they never come in and they just say, "Well, now these couple blocks are like the Vatican, and we're not
No chance.
we're just going to allow it
Never
to
going to
keep
happen.
going on."
Never going to happen.
So what kind of timeline would you give on that? If you had to guess, obviously this is all super speculative.
I
but-
feel at this point speculating very soon for Trump trying to make a step towards it.
well, because
is-
obviously we have an election coming up.
yeah,
very
and he
soon,
needs to
next
obviously
couple
get
months.
this place in order. Before.
Someone's going to need to make a statement,
Yeah.
and this is going to come up in an
You
election.
can't have total anarchy during an election.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I don't know, it was yesterday or the day before they asked the governor of Washington, what do you want to do about Chaz? And
Okay.
he said he hadn't heard about it.
Shut up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
that's-
people that say that.
That's kind of what we're dealing with here. So when everybody says
How
that,
can you not hear about it if that's in your state?
That's
not on
why-
mainstream.
That's why
It's not on mainstream.
That's
Chaz
why-
isn't that big on mainstream right now. It's not a big hit.
It's not a.
They're talking about the second wave
Well, I'm
more.
saying that this.
I haven't actually heard
Chaz-
about it a whole lot. That's why I
Chaz
don't
thing-
feel like I'm very knowledgeable on it.
It's just the Chaz thing does not make the leftist movement look good. It
Yeah.
doesn't make this whole idea.
Are they taking it too left? Is that
well,
why?
I mean, defund the police has 17% approval amongst Republicans, 18% approval among Democrats. Like,
it's not-
80%
oh, wow.
of the country hates the idea of not having police. It's insane.
It's crazy.
Well, yeah, people are
Not having
scared.
police.
It's bonkers.
People are scared.
Like, I'm saying the high crime communities, high concentration of black communities, really want the police.
Yes.
The idea that to remove the police is going to make things safer
Yeah.
is insane.
Well, there's
The
a lot of
issue-
people
so
live in a
so
lot of
the-
these communities that are high crime that have been living there for
Well,
50,
and-
60 years.
and-
And they just want to live in their community. Maybe it's gone, taken a downturn at some point in their history of them living there. But obviously, they know that the police need to be there. I mean,
it's just the idea that
is it just retraining police? Is that what the real
See,
thing
that's
is?
what I was gonna say. Is I don't think the whole defund police slogan.
Because it's not get rid of the police. It's
But-
defund it.
Yes, defund is which is basically on the path of getting rid
which
of.
is get rid of police.
Yes, is the,
But they're not saying
Less money means less police.
yes, less
So
money
no matter
means
how
less
much you
police.
So they're
defund
saying
them,
less.
training.
police.
Okay,
It-
they
it
want
actually,
less, but they're not saying they want no police.
defunding the police is actually going to make police forces way more dangerous. You're talking about less training, less police officers,
It's more crime for less people
more
to fight
crime.
the crime.
Yeah,
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. What I think happened was, I think the narrative defund the police or the slogan defund the police came out from the ground and not from the Democratic Party.
Well, no,
I
yeah,
think the Democratic Party never wanted
They
them
don't
to
like
come
it at
out
all.
and say defund the police.
They're coming out.
But
they're
they came
trying to-
out.
They're trying to back away.
People
from the
actually
whole
got
thing,
brains on the floor and was like, "We're gonna make a statement saying defund the police. We don't want police. Release everybody from jail." Are you crazy? I don't think that was what the Democrats wanted from their rioters, and I think what they probably should have leaned towards more was reform. Is a better word.
But that's the problem. What does reform mean?
Reform could mean anything from new training tactics, new.
what-
how about
what-
demilitarizing?
so-
less stuff like that.
But that's a big question for me. Is when people say you reform something because you want to change it.
Yes.
That you want to change it because you're getting a result you don't like.
Yeah.
What is the result that we're getting that people don't like?
That people don't like.
I think
What's
that,
the different thing? What do
I
we
think
want
that
to
it's
reform out of
very. I
policing?
think that
The training regimen. It seems
but
like
what
they're
about the training?
undertrained.
the people, anyone from the other side of the argument, was going to say that African American people or minorities are treated in a different way than
But that's just individual
people.
bigotry.
and that's
nothing
just
that can
saying
be
that I
trained.
think that's the argument there is to be had is we need to train these cops and make sure first off they don't have a bias coming in, and second
luck.
off maybe retraining them throughout their career though to see if they've gotten jaded or if PTSD like therapy maybe for some of these cops to see like after 5 years of doing your job, let's have you sit down with a psychologist or somebody else like that that can say this guy's not really capable anymore. He's seen too many things. He's not really
So which cops? Which cops?
Yeah, so we got Jamie off the screen here.
Defund the police means that we ask cops to be too much. If there's loose dogs, we ask cops to
So
chase
our
them.
producer is
If people
saying
slipping through the cracks with mental illness, we want cops to deal with that. Defund the police means
Our-
not necessarily get rid of the police, but stop putting so much money in a police force and put it in the educational system, put it into to solve
So what our
mental
producer's
illness
saying here,
issues.
so what our producer's saying here is that defund the police is more so, allocate the dollars elsewhere, is to, keep the police force, but, put the money into the communities, put the money into these black outreach, programs that will help the black community rather than pumping it all into the police force. Am I kind of,
Just in other departments in general, we ask our
yeah,
police force
put the
to
money
do
elsewhere.
too much.
Okay, that's what our producer's saying here off camera is that we're asking our cops to do too much. We're giving them too much responsibility. So again, I like getting these other points of view because right now we do have two guys that kind of are on the same side of this. And I'm not trying to put any kind of my personal beliefs into a conversation like this. So we are trying to kind of keep this at least posing questions that are from the other side here. And then what do you think about that? I mean, that doesn't sound like a bad deal for me. Saying like maybe give them a little less responsibility.
Well, first off, you have to prove to me that police officers treating African Americans differently.
No, I don't know. Even
No, but
let's
I'm
just
saying
keep it
that-
off of that.
but-
Let's keep it
but-
off more. So, do you think that they are treating everyone like there are stats out there saying that just as many unarmed white guys or whatever? That's fine, but that's all a problem, is it not? I mean, we could keep it out of race here completely and just saying,
But if
it does happen to everyone, and that's a kind of a problem that these cops are over or like abusing their powers.
There is a
So,
lot of guys.
But
I
that
mean, and
saying
that's
you
and
get
that's
that
fine by
content.
saying that like it's not just a black or white issue. You could debate that, but more so, I mean, I think in my lifetime, I can't even say I think I've seen cops abuse their powers, and that's not to say everyone does. There's good and bad in every population, obviously.
Well, we're in a time where we live in a world where to rid the world of the consequences of generalizations of people,
yeah.
are finding it very popular and very easy to generalize people based on what they do for a living or their gender. Or their
I think that's
color
a
of their
scary
skin.
way to go down.
It's like this idea that if you separate race from it, we're not talking about it.
I think it should.
If everybody felt that, if the mainstream thought was, regardless of your skin color, you were treated the same by police, we would not be talking about them abusing their power.
I think the
That's
more
that's
important
problem.
point to push here, though, is to take race out of it and just say
I have
cops
no
are
problem with
abusing
the
their
police. I
power.
have no problem with police.
And
I think
I
if
don't
people
either.
abuse their
I'm just
power
saying that
and everything
in
they do,
general, I think that's the bigger
I think
thing
there
to look at
definitely
here.
is a sort of a badge complex, a big man complex, when certain police officers
Which is
do
why,
get into the force.
which I agree with.
And,
I think no matter what you're doing, 5% of people that do it
Yeah.
are going to be assholes.
Yeah.
There's no avoiding it.
Yeah,
So
and
the
I think
idea-
that's the bigger
so
thing here
you
is
can
that.
reform
But
it
you're
to
talking
two
about
times.
assholes.
The problem isn't the fact that we have that very, very small minority of bad people or bad actors, criminals that are police officers.
Yeah.
There's nothing to support the fact that we have this systemic thing where cops are like this weird,
Yeah.
dark military that is trying to.
And that's your point of view. And the biggest thing that I'm trying to say here is maybe again, I think that a good way of solving that problem is maybe putting these guys into, continued training, like teachers and stuff like that. They have continued training they have to go to, and maybe it's not training, but it's more so like, how are you mentally after 5 years, 2 years, to
Mental
keep?
checks.
Yeah, it's like mental
Well,
checks
not-
on some of these guys to see like how are they doing. They have to keep year after year kind of
Yeah, but you're
convincing
talking
you that
about
they don't have
spreading that
bias.
through a force that is so large. I mean, I get it in big
Yeah.
town areas, places where there's a big, police force,
Yeah.
like NYPD or
Or
the CPD.
CPD, yeah.
It's easy to implement rules into the CPD because it's one program, even though it's so large, it is still just the CPD. So saying that you need a mental check after, even after like
Every 2 years or something.
even after you get in a gunfight, you should have a mental check.
Yeah.
Or if you shoot somebody,
I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
the
I'm
street.
pretty
And they
sure
do,
that
and they
that's.
do.
Oh
Some of-
yeah,
yeah.
some books. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that's all. That's what
Well-
I'm saying. It's but to do it in such small areas, a lot of these shootings that you're seeing are in small, unreformed police areas, sheriffs in rural areas. That it's individual bigotry. I think
Okay. What?
it's not a systematic thing.
my question is.
It's something that can't be trained. out
Okay,
of.
so if I said, Jordan, you're the ruler of everything, you make the call. What is the dream change we wish to see? Like, what can police do differently with the job they have?
I would
in the
say
world we live
treating
in?
everybody equally.
I'm saying,
The
if we do treat
legitimate change,
everybody
because treating
equally.
everybody equally is going to be a hard one, because like we've said in politics, everyone has their bias. Everybody
Yes.
does. And
Yeah.
if you want to sit here and say you're not a racist, you want to sit here and say you're not a bigot towards certain people, everybody has biases towards. You might have less bias, you might have more bias, but everyone has their bias. Everybody does. And if you want to sit here and admit it or you don't want to admit it, I think that everybody in the back of their mind does have a bias towards certain people, or it doesn't have to be of another race. It could be certain people that you have bias
people,
against
small
political
people,
views.
yeah,
You
or-
could have a bias against somebody larger people. If you see a big, large white
human
dude
being,
walking down the hallway,
and you're a
sometimes I take a
smaller
double
person.
check, dude.
Yeah, if you're a smaller
I mean,
person
it
in
doesn't
general, yeah.
have to be about race. It's just people have their own bigotries against certain different qualities in other human beings, and it's never going to change.
I just don't know how the world is made better by defunding the people that keep the world safe. Because the society we enjoy that lets you get pissed off and bring a Desert Eagle to the Chaz and defend the gate and say you're leaving America. The world we live in where you can go do that safely is the world that they want to make less safe and really, really harm the communities that you guys are talking about being treated equally. Yeah, it's this idea that there's systemic racism. It's like in policing, there's nothing to back it up, and if there's nothing to back that up, then the idea of police reform is just the conversation would not be a mainstream thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mainstream because it's a race thing. It divides by race.
And again, do you think this is just timed out because of election
course.
season?
I mean, I know Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Elton Sterling.
They were all election years.
They were all killed with Barack Obama's president. Nobody cared. just
People
seems-
cared. Oh,
No,
people cared.
They didn't blame Barack Obama for it. That's the problem.
They didn't blame. That's a good point to be made. They didn't blame Barack Obama for it, but there was riots, or not riots, but there was protests. There was big
I'm
movements.
saying there's
It was a
BLM
Ferguson riot,
started.
too.
BLM started in those days, though. Black
Yes,
Lives
and
Matter
Ferguson
started.
riot.
Yes, and
Yeah.
Ferguson was a movement that was protest against a majority minority police force, a black mayor, a black attorney general with a black president, a 9 out of 15 black board of directors. All of them were Democrats. Like we were talking about systemic oppression and racism and policing in Ferguson when there's not a lot of white guys there.
In the
So
whole
in the police
department or
force,
anything,
it's the vast minority. So
Yeah.
the idea of like, what are we protesting? So then you have the Ferguson effect,
Yeah.
where people say the cops aren't doing their jobs; they're being abusive.
Yeah.
So the cops say, okay, we'll do less of that.
Yeah.
We won't be as in your face. We won't be as hands on. Whatever you
Yeah.
guys want to do, and then murders go up 17%.
Yeah.
Because the only people that should want to get rid of cops are criminals. It's a pretty basic logic. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The idea that if you're a law-abiding citizen, that you think that we should reform the whole police department.
Yeah.
Because last year, 10 African Americans that were unarmed were killed. That's 1/4 of the last year of Barack Obama's term, but somehow we're getting worse.
Yeah.
There was 20 white guys killed last year without a gun. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And they talk about it's disproportionate. I'm just saying we just have a problem with our idea of what equality is,
Yes.
and we have a problem with our idea of how we use statistics.
Yeah.
And
that's a dangerous thing again, and that
Which
comes back
creates
into the
the interpretation
distrust.
of
Well, I
the
think that
existing.
comes back
It's
into the
all
distrust, though, is
interpretation,
where are you getting the statistics from? What statistics are valid? Which aren't? What can we trust?
It's
what
how
can we
you
not?
pull the statistics. You could look at everything as a whole. You could look at everything as a whole. You
Who's
could piece
gaining-
it together.
But who's gathering
so here's the-
this information?
Okay,
Who are these people?
Okay, so the idea that African American is 2.5 times more likely to become a police officer. Everybody's heard that. That's based on if you use 13% of the population, which are African Americans. But the idea is that African Americans commit half the violent crime in
Okay.
the United States. So when you look at the fact, it's actually disproportionately. Yeah, I mean, you have to look at the population pool is not just the population.
Yeah.
Because if you get rid of women, elderly people, and young people,
Yeah.
about 6 million black males commit half the violent crime
Yeah.
in the United States of America. So the idea that they get arrested or they get into violent altercations with the police is not a surprising statistic. Police know that. If you're a black man that gets killed by a cop, it's 3 times more likely a black cop did it than a white cop. So this idea, it's like, we have to just really look at
And
what we're
where are
actually
those
talking about.
statistics coming from?
FBI.
Okay. So we'll check those again. Please, everybody,
Go
if you
to
guys feel
the
like
FBI crime
if you're
report,
feeling like
UCR.
anything you're hearing here isn't correct, you want to look these up, comment again. Please come at us with your own stats. We're going off the mouth here. We're not stating sources or anything else like that. So please fact check us. Put that in the comments. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We might come back for a 4th segment. I'm not positive yet, but thank you so much for tuning in. Again, Bonfire Banter, like us, subscribe. All that stuff matters so much. Thank you guys so much, and hopefully we'll see you for a 4th segment tonight. This has been Bonfire Banter. This has been a fantastic episode. I've had a lot of fun. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your time. Thank you, Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate not only our panelists every week, but we need viewers. We love you guys. Thank you so much. This is why we've created this platform. First off, I want to say thank you to Jay Cable. We didn't get to your question tonight. Also want to say thank you to anyone that's commenting in general. Please, if you disagree, if you agree, post some comments. Let us know what you think. This is a platform for anyone. So if you post out there and you're local and you want to come down, we would love to have you out. So if at any point you see a panelist up here that you disagree with, let us know. We'd love to have you back out. We could have a further discussion on that. But this is going to be our last segment for the night. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are Bonfire Banter. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you.